Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, October 31st, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's been a very busy weekend. I had to teach 2 online courses this weekend, one Saturday, one Sunday. And, I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered also on Friday. So we had a good show on Friday. I'm going to share a couple of segments, some of the topics that we discussed on Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And, we're here 6 days a week. So hopefully you heard our show throughout the week. If you missed it, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Visit our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, because we have shows archived there. Okay, so earlier in the week, I think it was on Wednesday's show, we talked about what is developing in the gubernatorial race in Virginia, and how Toni Morrison's book, Beloved, is becoming a flashpoint, and how Glenn Youngkin, the Republican Trumpite candidate, is using dog whistles and attacking critical race theory, but also attacking Toni Morrison's book, Beloved. So we'll talk a little bit about this. Kimberly Crenshaw, who's one of the architects of critical race theory, was on the Readout with Joanne Reed on Friday to discuss this and to dispel this myth and to fight back against this distorted concept of what critical race theory is. Because as we have been talking about on this show numerous times, Republicans have weaponized critical race theory and are totally distorting what it is. And they have turned it into, they use it as a catch-all to describe anything basically dealing with teaching about systemic racism, history of slavery. It could be dealing with the civil rights movement, things that make them feel uncomfortable, but then they want to blame it on children and say that it will make white children feel uncomfortable or feel guilty about being white. All types of nonsense they've come up with because they don't really want to deal with real history. Okay. A revisionist history, the law's cause, is no problem. Revisionist history dealing with the Civil War, that's not a problem. So we're going to talk about, give you an update on what's going on in Virginia. Okay. Now, also, early in the week, we dealt with this story dealing with the killing of Ahamed Arbery in the trial in Glenn County, Georgia. The trial in Glenn County, Georgia. The jury selection has been very slow in the trial. And another thing that's slowing down the jury selection, you know that there have been 1,000 people summoned to appear for jury duty so they can be screened. And so far at the end of Friday, I think Friday was day 9, you had 42 people who had been selected from the pool of a total of 1,000. They've been selected to go to the next step. Once they get 64 prospective jurors, they'll go to the next screening process, and there'll be a questionnaire that they have to answer, and they're going to pick 16 from the 64, 12 jurors, and 12 jurors and 4 alternate jurors. Okay. So one of the things that is coming up in the jury selection is because the video was shown so much and went viral, some people already have a preconceived notion of what happened, and that's somewhat understandable. But there's a piece from the Associated Press and Yahoo News picked it up. It deals with potential jurors see racism behind Ahmaud Arbery's slaying. Potential jurors see racism behind Ahmaud Arbery's slaying. And one of the things that's interesting here is that because the city of Brunswick, which is a population of about 16,000 people, because it's such a small city, and it's a tight-knit community, everybody knows everybody. Some people who would have been disqualified from a jury in another city under different circumstances, where it's a larger city, etc. Some of those jurors are being allowed to sit on this jury. Okay. Now, the other thing that, and we talked about this on our Thursday show, we're going to revisit it today, is that at the center of the trial, is a citizen's arrest law in Georgia that dates back to the Civil War era. A citizen's arrest law in Georgia that dates back to the Civil War era. This law went into effect in 1863 when Georgia was part of the Confederacy and wasn't even part of the United States. The citizen's arrest law. We're going to deal with some of the history of the citizen's arrest law. We talked about it in depth on our Thursday show on October 28th. So if you missed the Thursday show, you can go back and listen to it in its entirety. But that law was used to target runaway slaves running away from plantations in Georgia who were running over to the Union side and running behind Union lines. Okay, this is who that citizen's arrest law was for. It goes back to 1863 during slavery. And this is one of the legacies of slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, racism. So when we talk about reparations and repairing the damage of slavery, as I said numerous times before, reparations can't just be a check. That means you don't even understand the damage that was done after slavery ended. You also have to change the laws that were put in place that keep inflicting harm and keep inflicting damage. When we talk about repairing the damage, it has to be repairing the damage has to be holistic. You have to have a holistic approach to repairing the damage. So this law, the citizen's arrest law in Georgia, was on the books until May of 2021 when it was repealed because of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. This is a Civil War era law. So it ties into a topic that we talked about earlier in the week, because we know on Sunday, October 24th, MSNBC aired the documentary Civil War, the roots of our division. Civil War, the roots of our division. And that, if you saw the documentary, you can give us a call, 313-778-7600. Let us know what you thought about it. Talked about it here extensively here on this show the past few days, early in the week, because it directly ties into what's going on today. Americans are very ignorant of history. We see trying to preserve the remnants of the Confederacy and Confederate monuments and statues. About a mile away from the Glenn County Courthouse, where the trial is taking place of the 3 white men who allegedly killed Ahmaud Arbery, there's a Confederate statue, okay, less than a mile away. Now, the statue is wrapped in plastic. A private citizen wrapped the statue in plastic to protect the statue. I wish somebody had wrapped Ahmaud Arbery to protect him from these 3 white men. But when you study the history of Georgia, Georgia has the largest Confederate monument in the country. It's called Stone Mountain. Okay, Georgia has the largest Confederate monument in the country. It's called Stone Mountain. And on Stone Mountain, carved into the side of Stone Mountain, are the images of General Robert E. Lee, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, and Jefferson Davis. And Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy. Okay, he was one of the biggest traders in history, Jefferson Davis, out of Mississippi. If you look at this article here from SmithsonianMag.com, what will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate memorial? What will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate memorial? And they show you, this is, I've been to the top of Stone Mountain. And on the side of it, you have the images of these 3 slave owners who committed treason against the U.S., took up arms against the U.S. to maintain slavery. That's what's in Georgia, right? So it's interesting how, because when you looked at the documentary, when you see the documentary, Civil War, the roots of our division, you have people in there, white Southerners, who say slavery happened, but it's in the past, but they want to hold on to the symbols of the Confederacy today. That's from the past, from the same era of history. They want to maintain the symbols of the Confederacy of the past, while they try to distance the Confederacy from slavery and say slavery's in the past. They want to hold on to the symbols of the Confederacy in the present. And then they'll say slavery happened, but what do you want me to do about it? One of the things that has to happen is you have to change these laws that are still in place that are the legacy of slavery, because they're still inflicting damage today. So we'll discuss that. Now, civil rights leaders from leading civil rights organizations on Thursday, October 28th, met with Senator Joe Biden. I mean, not Joe Biden, Senator Joe Manchin. They met with Senator Joe Manchin to discuss the Voting Rights Act and getting the bill passed and getting around the filibuster. Melanie Campbell of the Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable, Melanie Campbell was in that meeting, and she spoke with us on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. So I'm going to share that discussion, because one of the things that I brought up is something that I keep seeing as missing, and that's economic pressure on corporations that have largely gone silent. That's economic pressure on corporations. Okay, so we'll discuss that as well. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We know Kwanzaa's coming up. African American History Month is coming up, and more. So email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. We're coming up here on a break in a few minutes also. I want to revisit this first story here. This is dealing with Toni Morrison and how this dead African-American woman, how you have Republicans trying to use her to galvanize their base because they don't have any policies that are going to really benefit people's lives. They just talk about what they're against. They don't have policies that are really going to benefit people's lives. So they're engaging in culture wars and just blatant lies, dog whistling, etc., racist dog whistling, etc. If we look at this article here from the Washington Post, this is from October 25th, 2021. Fight over teaching beloved book in schools becomes hot topic in Virginia's governor's race. Okay, this is from Monday, October 25th. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. All right, back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Yeah, today is Halloween. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by. Who still needs to register for the 10-week online course that I teach on the weekend from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968? We had a great class on Saturday. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. All right. And then also on Sunday, I taught a class today. I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. How's everybody doing? Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes.
In the African History Network show, we deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism means. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, the oldest radio station in town since 1922.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, October 31st, 2021, and we are live. Halloween. I've done a presentation dealing with the history of Halloween, the origins of Halloween, but today's show is going to be so packed. I'll try to talk about that on our Monday show. One thing I do tell people, and we talked about this, I talk about this in the online classes that I teach. If you're going to participate in European holidays, you should understand the history, what it is that you're participating in. So I recommend reading the books by Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashango, African People and European Holidays and Mental Genocide. African People and European Holidays and Mental Genocide. Book 1 and book 2. Book 1 has a yellow cover because he goes through and deals with the history of all these European holidays that we have been taught to celebrate. Okay, so even if you learn the real history behind what you're celebrating, you decide to continue to celebrate it, it will probably change the way that you engage in the celebration. Because a lot of these things we've just been taught to do because our parents taught us to do it, or our teachers taught us to do it, and they really didn't know why, because that same thing happened to them. Okay, so I saw a lot of pictures of people dressed up for Halloween and things like that, and okay, that's fine. If you're going to dress your children up for Halloween, at least dress them up as African heroes like Mansa Musa, Hannibal Barca, Ida B. Wells, all set. At least dress them up as African heroes, great African people, if we're going to participate in that. All right. So let's continue here. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. Right before the break, we were talking about what's going on in Virginia and how Toni Morrison, acclaimed African-American female author who is deceased, how her book Beloved is being used to galvanize white Republicans to vote for Glenn Youngkin, Republican candidate for governor of Virginia, because Republicans don't have any policies to run on. Not that are going to be beneficial to the everyday person. So they're running on culture wars. A Pulitzer Prize winning novel from 1987 has suddenly become the hottest topic in the Virginia governor's race, as Republican Glenn Youngkin charged that Democrat Terry McAuliffe, Terry McAuliffe is the former governor in Virginia, based upon Virginia's charter, based upon their state constitution. You can't serve 2 consecutive terms as governor, which is stupid, but that's Virginia. You can't serve 2 consecutive terms as governor. So Terry McAuliffe is coming back after sitting out for a term, and he's running for governor again. So Republican Glenn Youngkin, who wants Trump supporters and is not shying away from Trump. He wants Trump support and Trump supporters, but he's trying to keep a yardstick distance away from Trump because he doesn't want to seem too crazy. This is the game the Republicans are playing. Glenn Youngkin charged that Democrat Terry McAuliffe blocked parents from protecting their children from explicit classroom material, while Governor Terry McAuliffe responded by raising the specter of book banning. Now, at the heart of the issue is the novel Beloved by Nobel laureate Toni Morrison, about a Civil War era African-American woman who kills her own 2-year-old daughter to spare her from the evils of slavery. Okay, to spare her from the evils of slavery. And this is based on the real story of Margaret Garner, who was an African-American woman who runs away from slavery, runs into free territory, and kills her 2-year-old daughter to keep her from being taken back into slavery and growing up in slavery. So the novel, inspired by a true story, contains graphic depictions of sex, violence, and bestiality as it portrays the horrors of slavery, but was praised by New York Times critic Michiko Kakutani for having, quote, the heightened power and resonance of myth. The heightened power and resonance of myth. Now, the question people really should ask is, what were the horrors of slavery that will cause a mother to do this? What were the conditions they were dealing with? Instead of trying to ban the book because you don't want to talk about this, because you don't want to hurt white children's feelings, or maybe because you feel guilty about, what some of your ancestors did. Why aren't we? We should be really dealing with the history of what happened, as opposed to trying to remove the book because you don't want to talk about the history, while you try to hold on to Confederate monuments and Confederate and symbols of the Confederacy. Now, with only 1 week to go until Election Day, this is Monday. We know Election Day is coming up Tuesday. Ben Youngkin released an ad this past Monday, October 25th, featuring Fairfax County resident Laura Murphy, Laura Murphy waged a battle against Beloved in schools, banning in schools beginning in 2013 after her son, a high school senior at the time, said it gave him nightmares. It gave him nightmares while reading it for an advanced placement literature class. So she's in this commercial for Glenn Youngkin. She's talking about the book. She showed the book to some people and they turned bright red, things like this. Obviously, these are white people you showed it to. She said it is the most sexually explicit stuff she's seen. I don't know where you've been sheltered. Yeah, I'm not. I think she's a Trump supporter. Trump is the same guy. He said he bragged about grabbing women by the vagina. That's the same guy. But so instead of you really want to deal with the historic conditions surrounding what the novel is about, you just want to ban it because you showed it to some people and they turned bright red, or you can't believe what's in the book. I don't think she's read the entire book, but So Laura Murphy eventually took her fight to the Republican-led General Assembly, which in 2016 passed a bill with bipartisan support to give parents the right to opt their children out of sexually explicit reading assignments. The purpose of reading a book is not about sex. I just so people understand. I'm not sure if Laura gets this, Laura Murphy, but the purpose of reading the book is not about sex. Now, at the time, about half of Virginia's school districts already followed that practice, but the bill would have enshrined that in law. The Beloved Bill, as it was known, would have made Virginia the first state in the nation to give parents that opt-out power. It would have been the first state in the nation to give parents that opt-out power. Governor Terry McAuliffe vetoed the bill, as well as a similar bill in 2017. Now, see what I find, I find it really interesting how you have parents, and most of these parents who are complaining don't have degrees in education or history, but they're trying. They don't want their children to learn about these tough topics, these tough subjects. Now, they have no problem with the American Revolutionary War, and white people were fighting to keep African people enslaved in the American Revolutionary War because the 13 colonies didn't go to war to end slavery, and they kept slavery after they won their independence from Great Britain. See, they don't have a problem talking about that history. Governor Terry McAuliffe on Monday condemned the ad, saying Glenn Youngkin was using, quote, our schools and children as political pawns, using our schools and children as political pawns. Terry McAuliffe said in the final week of this race, Glenn Youngkin has doubled down on the same divisive culture wars that have fueled his campaign from the very beginning. Former Governor Terry McAuliffe said in a written statement, he said Youngkin's closing message of book banning and silencing esteemed Black authors is a racist dog whistle designed to gin up support from the most extreme elements of his party. Mainly his top endorser and surrogate, the traitor-in-chief Donald Trump, who was just doing the tomahawk chop at the at the World Series. Talk about culturally insensitive. Now, Glenn Youngkin's campaign released a statement saying the bills, quote, would simply have notified parents of sexually explicit reading assignments and given them the choice of having their child receive an alternative assignment. Terry McAuliffe continues to confirm every day that he wants to silence parents because he doesn't believe they should have a say in their child's education. End quote. Now, in the 60-second video, Laura Murphy speaks directly into the camera. She said, when my son showed me his reading material, my heart sunk. It was some of the most explicit reading material you can imagine. I mean, you think she was reading Iceberg Slim or something. I mean, okay. All right. So McAuliffe vetoes show that, quote, he doesn't think parents have a say, end quote, she says. He shut us out. Now, her son, Blake Murphy, Laura Murphy's son, Blake Murphy, is now a leader at the National Republican Congressional Committee. The ad viewed more than 1 million times and shared on Twitter more than 1,600 times as late as last Tuesday, October 26. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican challenger, has increasingly built his campaign's momentum on issues of parental grievance. Now, you should, Washington Post, you should do better reporting this, is white parents' grievance. Let's just be honest. The Republicans are running on white grievance, culture wars, the fear of becoming a minority population by 2043. That's what all this is. That's what all this is about. Okay. Youngkin has increasingly built his campaign's momentum on issues of white parents' grievance as conservatives nationwide accuse local school boards of pursuing a liberal cultural agenda. The tactic seems to be working. Polls show that Youngkin has gained on McAuliffe and the race is a dead heat. Now, however, as far as early voting goes, I think they're setting a record. There's over 800,000 that have already early voted in Virginia. We don't know who's voting. We don't know if it's more Democrats, but we do know early voting is a lot of people who've already early voted. Glenn Youngkin routinely gets his loudest applause at rallies when he promises to ban the teaching of critical race theory in Virginia, referring to a set of academic theories about teaching racial history that are not actually on the state's public school curriculums. Critical race theory is not taught in K through 12. Ain't taught in Virginia. It's not taught across the country. It's not taught in K through 12. That's a legal analysis that's taught in law schools and graduate schools. It's not taught in K through 12. So they created, the Republicans have created this straw man of critical race theory and galvanized support about fighting critical race theory and keeping critical race theory out of school or banning critical race theory. But it's not even taught in K through 12. People aren't advocating for critical race theory to be taught in K through 12. So this is about white grievance and white fear. This is about white grievance and about white fear. And they don't really want their children to know the real history because they're going to come home and they're going to look at that. They may look at their grandfathers differently from what they've heard their grandparents and their parents and things like this say about non-white people. Now, that's some white people. That's not all of them, because there was a poll done. We talked about it here before. In September, USA Today Ipsos, 63% of Americans say they want their children to learn about the history of slavery and the legacy of slavery, learn about that in school. They want them to learn about that. I want to go to this clip here from the readout with Joanne Reed. This is from Friday, October 29th, 2021. Joanne Reed spoke with Kimberly Crenshaw, who is one of the architects of critical race theory, to break down, number one, dispel this nonsense coming out of Virginia, and to break down critical race theory, what it is and what it is not. Let's go to this clip, Jalen.
Locations. Let's turn the clock back a few years to Lee Atwater, a Republican operative who used race to win elections.
You start out in 1954 by saying, by 1968, you keep saying that's perfect backfire. So you say stuff like fourth person, respect whites, and all that stuff.
Like Atwater, Glenn is using coded language because in 2021, he can't get away with saying what he really wants to say. So if you see Glenn Youngkin talking about critical race theory, critical race theory, make sure to let him know he's not fooling anyone.
The coded language of critical race theory isn't so coded anymore, is it? We know the CRT boogeyman is a euphemism for anything pertaining to race or history that makes any white parent or child feel uncomfortable, including Toni Morrison's Beloved, a seminal work of American fiction on the historical trauma of slavery. Banning such content is so prominent in Republican Glenn Youngkin's campaign, you'd think this race was really between Youngkin and Toni Morrison, the late Toni Morrison. Well, sorry, Glenn, that is a fight that you're never going to win. Joining me now is Kimberly Crenshaw, leading scholar on critical race theory and executive director of the African American Policy Forum. I'm so glad that you were available to be here this Friday evening. This dog whistle, I feel like Lee Atwater ad is sort of a perfect sort of chef's kiss explanation of what's going on here. Because critical race theory, here's the Heritage Foundation has redefined what critical race theory is, even though we know that's not what it is. It classifies individuals into groups of oppressors and victims. It's a philosophy that's infecting everything from politics and education to the workplace and the military. Basically, anything that makes anybody white feel uncomfortable. What do you make of this Youngkin strategy of fighting Toni Morrison?
First of all, I'm just so happy to have this opportunity to talk to you about this. Of course, I've been chomping at the bit to have a conversation about what they have done to critical race theory. We've been talking about this for a year. We've been telling people this is coming. We've been telling people that this is a distraction that's working. They're doing a bait and switch. They don't care about critical race theory. They don't know what critical race theory is, but they're telling us what they want to get rid of. They're telling us what the target is. And now that they have gone after Toni Morrison, one of the most celebrated authors of the 20th century, Toni Morrison. They're going after Toni Morrison. They're going after so many authors. And why? They've told us why. They don't like ideas around social justice. They don't like ideas around diversity. They don't like ideas that cause us to confront the realities of our past, including enslavement, including manifest destiny, including genocide. They have told their followers, if you see any of these concepts in your children's material or anywhere else, and they've listed them, then go at it. So it's not a secret anymore what they're going after. It is the entire social, racial justice agenda.
And Christopher Rufo admitted that. He literally is at the Claremont Institute saying, I don't even care about this stuff. I don't even know what it is. I don't care about it. He's like, this is going to mobilize our voters. Duh. Like, he said it out loud, and people still don't get it. Here's some of the books that were that the Texas Tribune reports Texas wants to have banned. There's we don't have a list of the individual books, but it's 850 titles that are in their libraries and classrooms. I mean, they're talking about anything that talks about Texas history, anything on race and sexuality. You're right. It's very open. Do you understand why Democrats just don't say that, just don't come out and say, these people are against all of y'all. They're against anything that's about Black and brown people and LGBT people being equal. They don't want to hear that.
Well, the problem is this. Our side tends to take some time to think things through. We don't rush to judgment. We don't believe lies. But we are up against an organized faction that has created big lies out of the election, big lies out of the notion of voter fraud, big lies out of the notions of the environment. And because, as your earlier segment just pointed out, people are used to this diet. So it's easy to distract people from what's really happening and force them to express themselves as people with grievances. I think many people really believe it because they're used to listening to this stuff. The ones that don't believe it are the Christopher Rufos, the ones that know that what they're going after is not the coarse critical race theory. They're going after critical ideas about race in our American society. And it is time, Joy, for our constituents to be apprised of the fact that this is basically taking away our heritage, taking away the country that we're working so hard to build. We've been talking to parents all across the country. They don't know what critical race theory is, but they do know that they want the next generation not to be bedeviled with these problems, and they realize the way forward is to learn about our past so we don't repeat it.
Yeah, they basically rebranded critical race theory as anything that criticizes historical white people, like white people in history. Let's talk about actually what critical race theory is for. Let's just talk about the way the legal system disadvantages people of color historically. It's built that way. There's a judge who was in one of these January 6th prosecutions. Washington Post reported, and this is what this judge said. He called it almost schizophrenic, the prosecutions of these people, saying these rioters were not mere protesters. No wonder parts of the public in the U.S. are confused about whether what happened on January 6th at the Capitol was simply a petty offense of trespassing with some disorderliness or shocking criminal conduct that related to American democratic norms. Said this judge, her name is Beryl Howell. We really are literally seeing people who broke into our Capitol waving the treasonous Confederate flag and chanted "Hang Mike Pence," getting life sentences, right? When you see people of color being locked up for life for selling weed, isn't that what critical race theory is about? It's about these disparities in the justice system.
Well, that, Joy, and so much more. But, to really understand what's going on here, we just have to go back to the most significant moment in our history when violence was being used to pursue a racial project and what happened to those people. And I'm talking about the Civil War.
Yeah.
We are talking about a group of people who took up arms against the United States because they wanted to fight to keep their slaves. They basically got a timeout, right? They killed hundreds of thousands of people, right? The bloodiest war that we've been in. And they basically got a timeout. And to add insult to the injury, in less than a generation, our president was willing to say that it was a quarrel forgotten. So basically, this story about taking up arms against the United States has now been reframed as the lost cause. And the lost cause is what has been in our textbooks for so long. The Daughters of the Confederacy, they might have lost the battle, but they won the war because they were able to tell the story. And the story that they told was that this was not about, the Civil War was not about keeping slaves. The Civil War was fought over honor. So what we're dealing with right now, both in the cases that you're talking about and in the debate about what's being taught in schools, is a modest effort to reflect back on what has happened so that the lies that were told about the past are now clarified so everybody can understand what happened the last time lies were told and our country took up arms against itself. My worry is that because people don't know that history and now a whole faction is trying to make sure they never will know that history, we might be in a position 5 years from now when people are saying you can't teach what actually happened January 6th.
And they're trying to do that. Kimberly Crenshaw, they are trying to do that right even as we speak. Thank you so much. You are just the right person that I wanted to talk to about this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for all that you do.
Okay, pause it right there. Okay, so that was, okay, pause it right there. All right, so that was from the readout with Joanne Reed. She was interviewing Kimberly Crenshaw, who is one of the architects of critical race theory, which developed after, it started developing in the late 60s, critical race theory. If very quickly here, read this article from CNN.com. We've talked about it before. What critical race theory is and isn't. What critical race theory is and isn't. From May 10th, 2021. And it gives more background information here. And it talks about the attacks on history that's taking place in school under the guise of fighting critical race theory, but critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools. It's a smoke screen. And they quote Kimberly Crenshaw here in this article. And it says, she says, critical race theory is a practice. It is an approach to grappling with a history of white supremacy that rejects the belief that what's in the past is in the past, and that the laws and systems that grow from that past are detached from it. Said Kimberly Crenshaw, a founding critical race theorist and law professor who teaches at UCLA and Columbia University. Critical race theorists believe that racism is an everyday experience for most people of color, and that a large part of society has no interest in doing away with it because it benefits white elites. Well, it benefits white people in general. Just be clear. It benefits white people in general. White elites benefit more so, but it benefits white people in general. Many also believe that American institutions are racist and that people are privileged or oppressed because of their race. Because racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Racism is not about calling people racial epithets or calling people names. It's about a power structure. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Okay, so read the rest of this article here from CNN. Okay, now I want to we're coming up here on a break. I want to go to this next story. And calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 if you have a question or comment. Also, if you like this type of information, you can register for the online courses I teach on Saturday and Sunday on the weekends, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement to Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We teach this one on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. Even after the 10-week online course is over with, you can still go back and watch the full class. We had a great class on Saturday, and we deal with history leading up to the Civil War, starting with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803, and we deal with the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, the founding of the Republican Party. We deal with the Missouri Compromise of 1820. We deal with the Civil War, Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. We just dealt with the Compromise of 1877 yesterday, which ended Reconstruction. We also talked about the Black Exodus to Kansas in 1879 because of the Louisiana statewide election of 1878, and Republicans taking back control of the state legislature in 1878, causing an exodus of African Americans out of Louisiana as well as Texas going into Kansas in 1879. So we go throughout history. Each class we go through and analyze approximately a 10-year period of history, and we look at especially the periods from 1865 through 1968, and we look at the Great Migration, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay. So we just posted the link here. The class is on sale, $70, regularly $130. Also, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization as well. Okay, so on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, Melanie Campbell of the Black Women's Roundtable and was one of the people, one of the members of civil rights organizations that met with Senator Joe Biden. Senator Joe Manchin, met with Senator Joe Manchin. And they met with him over the Voting Rights Act and getting the Voting Rights Act passed and changing the filibuster, carve out to the filibuster, removing the filibuster. They're not going to, I'm telling you right now, they're not going to get rid of the filibuster, especially in the 117th Congress. They're not going to get rid of the filibuster. You can go back to a standing filibuster, which is what it used to be. And Joe Biden has said for months that he supports going back to a standing filibuster, which is what it used to be. Okay. But they're not going to get rid of the filibuster because Democrats use the filibuster as well. And they used it in 2020 against Republicans. So hell no, they ain't gonna get rid of the filibuster. You live in a fairy tale land if you think that. But I want to go to this clip here because she talked about the meeting with Joe Manchin and what's next. And I said what needs to happen because that's not what that's not what they've been saying needs to happen. I'm telling you what needs to happen. Let's go to this clip, Jalen. Stand by, everybody.
Historic Civil Rights Organization met with West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin about the issue of voting rights legislation. He, of course, has made it clear he does not want to end the filibuster. That's the only way it is going to get passed in the United States Senate. They met yesterday with the West Virginia Senator. Lots of pressure has been placed on him, as well as Arizona Senator Christian Sinema, when it comes to the For the People Act and the John Lewis Act. One of the folks who met with him is Melanie Campbell, who's the CEO of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. She's doing this right now on the show. Melanie, glad to have you back. This has been one of several conversations y'all have had with Senator Manchin. Has he moved? Has he budged? Is he going to do anything on this issue?
I am one to continue.
We're having issues with Melanie's audio, and so guys, let me know when we have that taken care of, and so I can go back to Melanie to get an understanding of what is going on. As I said, folks, what has been happening is very simple, and that is there's been a number of there have been protests and pressure that are being applied to United States senators, the Democratic senators, because no Republicans are going to vote for the issue of voting rights. They're not stepping up. They're not being, they're not listening to it. Sure, one is named after John Lewis, but they're absolutely not supporting that bill. So I think we have Melanie back. So Melanie, where do we stand? Because y'all had several meetings with Senator Joe Manchin, and he's talking about bipartisanship and productive meetings. Look, when they had a vote a couple of weeks ago on a voting bill, not a single Republican voted with the Democrats. So what the hell is he talking about by bipartisanship?
I'm not certain. I can't speak to what he has in his mind. He did not commit that he would deal with the filibuster in the way that we know it has to be. So the main focus was really to continue to push why it's critical. Why it's critical that the administration also continue to push Manchin and others to do what needs to be done to protect this our voting rights, which is at the same time protecting this nation. And so what's at stake is we all know, which is why we all continue to fight, you and everybody else are continuing to fight, and that to urge him to really to just do what needs to be done when it's, and the filibuster is not the protector of democracy. What protects democracy is the right to vote.
The deal here,
all right. Hey, pause it right there, Jalen. We have to go to break. Pause right there. We'll pick it up. Just back it up about 20, 30 seconds. We'll pick this up on the other side of the break. And then I'm going to let you hear what I said needs to happen. Because it's different than what a lot of other people have been saying. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation and Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes, everybody. Stand by. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. All right, who still needs to register for the online courses that I teach on the weekend? Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We do this on Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. That's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. All right. Also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, we have Kwanzaa Kanaras provided by Sister Nubia Wartford. So visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You'll hear more about that as well. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes.
Detroit, 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media.
I'm Dr. Michael Imhotep. In the African History Network show, we deal with current events of history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts. You can control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do a piece what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, October 31st, 2021, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Also, if you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show. SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts, so that's not me. So we're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. Right before the break, I was sharing an excerpt from Roland Martin Unfiltered when I was a panelist on Friday, October 29th. And Roland interviewed Melanie Campbell. Melanie Campbell is with the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable, President and CEO Melanie Campbell. She was in a meeting with other leaders of civil rights organizations with Senator Joe Manchin on Thursday, October 28th, pressuring him to move on the Voting Rights Act. Well, not just move on the Voting Rights Act, but actually the filibuster, because he wrote a lot of the Freedom to Vote Act, and he wrote that along with Senator Raphael Warnock and others. And he said that he could get 10 Republicans to vote for the bill. No Republicans voted to even move to the next step to have a debate on the Senate floor for the Freedom to Vote Act. So they made him look like a fool. So they met with him. We're going to go back to this clip here, but I just want to show this here because you have some of the civil rights activists is saying in the filibuster, things like this. Now, none of them want to tell you that Democrats use the filibuster also, like recently, like in 2020. Okay, none of them want to say that. And then also, if we look at this article here from Washington Post, this is from January 26, 2021. Now, I may not agree with everything in the article, but you have to like do more research and stop just repeating talking points. This is an opinion piece from the Washington Post. Democrats have vigorously used the filibuster. It's pathetic now. It's pathetic they now won't pledge to protect it. Now, this is from January 26, 2021. This is 6 days after the insurrection. I'm sorry, this is 20 days after the insurrection, January 6th, 6 days after Joe Biden was sworn in as president. Okay, but if you look at this article, it says in 2017, when Donald Trump was president and Democrats were in the minority in the Senate, 61 U.S. senators, including 30 Democrats, signed a letter promising to preserve the right of the Senate minority to delay or block legislation. Okay, that's the filibuster. In 2017, when Democrats were in the minority in the Senate and Republicans were in the majority and Donald Trump was president, 61 senators, including 30 Democrats, signed a bill, signed a letter to keep the filibuster. Okay. 61 senators, including 30 Democrats, signed a letter promising to preserve the right of the Senate minority to delay or block legislation. Now, yes, there's more. Yes, Republicans are total obstructionists now. That's true. But you can do a carve out to the filibuster because there have been 161 carve outs in the past 50 years. You can go back, you can change the filibuster rules back to what they used to be, to have a standing filibuster, talking filibuster, where you have to stand and talk and hold the floor and try to convince people of your position, because now it's too easy to filibuster a bill. You can just call in from your office to the Senate Majority Leader and say you want to filibuster a bill. You can call in from the pool. You can call in from the country club. It's too easy to use the filibuster rule. And the filibuster goes back as a formal rule to 1917. Okay, it's too easy to use it. So you can go back to what it was, and that puts the burden on the minority who's trying to block a bill, because the way it is now, the burden is on the majority. Okay, now the burden is on the majority to try to get enough votes to break the filibuster. The article goes on to say, this opinion piece goes on to say, but now that Republicans are in the minority, just 2 Democrats, Senator Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, are willing to make that same pledge. Now, when what they're saying is, see, this is why you got to do research. You can't just repeat talking points. You have to do research, because nobody is pointing this out. Very few people are saying, wait a second, Democrats use the filibuster also. Like in the past few years, like under the Trump administration, Democrats use the filibuster as well. That's why a lot of senators, that's why a lot of Democratic senators are saying, wait a second, hold on, we can change some rules. But that's why they're leery of getting rid of it, because they know they've used it to defeat Republican bills. And that's something that very few people want to talk about. Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer, Democrat of New York, not only refused, he warned he would not allow the GOP minority, quote, to dictate to the Senate what we should do and how we should proceed, end quote. When Schumer was minority leader, he vigorously used the filibuster to do just that. Under his leadership, Democrats used the filibuster to block funding for construction of Trump's border wall in 2019. Democrats used it not once, but twice to impede passage of the CARES Act, forcing Republicans to agree to changes, including a $600 weekly federal unemployment supplement. How many people remember that? Because some of us got that. See, this is the other side that a lot of people don't want to talk about. That's why you have to look at things holistically. That's why you have to do research. Democrats used the filibuster in September and October to stop Republicans from 2020. September and October to stop Republicans from passing further coronavirus relief before the November election, before the November 2020 election. Democrats used the filibuster to halt Senator Tim Scott's Republican South Carolina police reform legislation, so Republicans could not claim credit for forging a bipartisan response. Well, Tim Scott's bill was weak as hell. Yes, this is an opinion piece. There's a lot of truth in the opinion piece. Tim Scott's version, this was before the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, where talks just stopped with Tim Scott a month or so ago. This is back when Trump was in office, and Republicans came with their version of a police reform bill. It was weak as hell. So Democrats were correct to stop that bill because it was terrible. Or as Charles Barkley would say, terrible. So when I hear people say, oh, they just need to totally get rid of the filibuster, it's like, no, y'all need to do some research first for you to just jump out here giving out these talking points. Because Democrats use it as well, and many times for good reason, to stop horrible bills. But you can do a carve out to the filibuster. You can change the rules to go back to what they used to be, to a standing filibuster, which puts the onus on the minority party as opposed to the onus being on the majority party. Because a lot of Republicans know, a lot of Democrats know, look, if we get rid of this, we're going to have hell to pay, because at some point Republicans will be back in control of the Senate, and you won't have it to be able to stop Republican bills. They used it to block. They used it to block legislation to force sanctuary cities to cooperate with federal officials and stop a prohibition on taxpayer funding of abortion, bans on abortions once the unborn child is capable of feeling pain and protections, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and those are just the those are just the bills Democrats killed with actual filibuster votes. More often than not, the majority doesn't even bring up legislation that does not have 60 votes needed to cut off debate. Just the threat of a Democratic filibuster stopped Republicans from moving forward on a host of priorities, including entitlement reforms, immigration reforms, lawsuit reforms, et cetera, healthcare reforms, budget, et cetera. Both parties use the filibuster. Now here you just have a GOP white nationalist obstructionist party that is supporting the traitor-in-chief who tried to engineer an insurrection. So you have to get around the filibuster, but it's like most of the Democratic senators are like, wait a second, hold on. If we get rid of the rule altogether, that's going to cause a huge problem. And Democrats have used the filibuster to force Republicans to reduce the scope of some of their biggest legislative achievements. Republicans could not make the Trump income tax permanent because they had to use the arcane budget reconciliation process, which requires a simple majority vote, but limits what can be enacted to avoid a Democratic filibuster. Read the rest of this here. Because I watch MSNBC all day. I watch the Black News Channel, I do research all day. And very few people, when they talk about the filibuster, things like this, very few people are being honest enough to say, wait a second, Democrats used the filibuster under Trump to block a lot of bills from Republicans in the Senate. Let's go back to this clip here. This is Melanie Campbell speaking with Roland Martin from Friday, October 29th, 2021. Let's go back to this clip, Jalen.
Stake is, we all know, which is why we all continue to fight, you and everybody else are continuing to fight, and that to urge him to really to just do what needs to be done and the filibuster is not the protector of democracy. What protects democracy is the right to vote.
The deal here, Melanie, we've established the problem. Y'all have repeated ad nauseum how critical this is. he has made no effort to move at all. And so in this meeting, first of all, how long did the meeting last? And what did he say? I mean, y'all are repeating over and over and over again your previous meetings with him. I mean, so here's the point. What does another meeting do if he's not going to move?
Well, you know, Roland, you are a person who understands politics, and you keep pushing, right? But we're not the only ones. We're the outside in pushing in, and we have to also challenge the people who are also the heads of the party and all the people who are inside when it comes to the politics. So we left that meeting and did the Freedom Walk, as you well know, because you supported it, and did the speak out and went to and 9 of us got arrested yesterday. Reverend Barber was there with us. Latasha was there with us. So we know we have to keep pushing. And I'll speak for myself is that I think that the leadership of the Democratic Party, the president has to use his bully pulpit to do what he needs to do inside of that party to move to, and of course, Senator Schumer, as the head of the Senate, they have to do their job to get their caucus in line, not just Joe Manchin and the Senate. Make sure, and we have to also on the outside keep pushing. I don't know anything else to do but to keep fighting because we don't have an option not to. And at some point, I'm hopeful that the people will do what's needed. They will seize the moment and lead. And so we keep saying the same thing because the facts don't change. The fact is the filibuster is not something that's going to protect this country. And we have to all keep and get more and more people to speak up and speak out and use every opportunity and means that we can to keep pushing until we win on this issue, because we have a whole lot more to fight about once we get past getting voting rights passed.
Well, I mean, obviously, meeting and pressuring is important, but it is fundamentally clear. First of all, it's clear that Joe Manchin is not going to move on this issue, and that's one of the reasons why Reverend William Barber and the Poor People's Campaign continue to have protests and action in his home state of West Virginia, because clearly he's ignoring civil rights organizations. Maybe he'll listen to actual voters in his home state.
Roland, he's ignoring civil rights organizations. He's ignoring the president. He's ignoring the head of the Senate, Chuck Schumer. He's ignoring his base, right? So we all have to keep pushing, right? We all have to keep pushing from every angle.
All right, Melanie Campbell, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Keep going.
How do you know if your soap actually stops?
Okay. We got to get past that commercial. Okay, go ahead.
Bringing our panel now, Michael Imhotep, African History Network, also Killer Bethea Communication Strategy, Dr. Cleo Monago, Chief Advisor for the Black Men's Exchange, BMX National. Glad to have all three of you here. Michael, you heard Melanie say, got to keep the pressure up. You see people who follow Senator Kristen Sinema in bathrooms, pressuring her as she fought in D.C. I mean, look, that's the only thing that's going to happen here. And so folks have done things a nice way. They've had responsive to that up against him and all the other Democrats. And yes, President Joe Biden is going to have to stop with this, hey, we might have to do this. No, he is going to have to commit.
Yeah, Roland, thanks for having me back again. It's good to see you again. There's a few things here. Now, we talked about this a number of weeks here on this show, and some of what I'm going to say today is the same thing I said the previous weeks. Yeah, you have to keep the pressure up, but they're not putting the right type of pressure. They're not using the right type of pressure. If we go back to 2015, Roland, when you had the transgender bathroom bill in the state of Indiana, corporations were tripping over themselves to come out and denounce the transgender bathroom bill, and they put economic pressure on the Indiana state legislature. They were threatening to cancel conventions in the state of Indiana. One convention was canceled, And within a week, the Indiana state legislature changed the bill because of economic pressure from corporations. Now, remember a few months ago, corporations were putting out statements here and there, but notice how silent they've been. And one of the things that's missing is putting economic pressure on corporations. And, one of the things that needs to happen is, I remember back when Cindy Hyde-Smith was running against Mike Espy in Mississippi for a senator, ProPublica put out a list of corporations that donated to Cindy Hyde-Smith. This is when she made those public hanging comments. And this caused a furor. Now, she still won, but this put pressure on corporations. So, one, we need to look at the corporations. FEC.gov has the list of corporations that donated to Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema's campaign. Those corporations have to be called out and economic pressure on them. We know that a carve out to the filibuster has been used 161 times over the past last half century. Filibuster only came into existence in 1917, by the way. It's not in the Constitution. And the other thing is that this has to be expanded beyond just an African American issue. This is a 19th Amendment issue, which deals with white women's voting rights. This is a 26th Amendment issue, which deals with college students as well.
But here's the deal. But here's the deal. But hold on. But here's the piece, Kelly. Mark Elias tweeted this the other day as well. He said, "Hey, what happened to Michael's point? What happened to all these companies that were going to, and these law firms that were going to have this major effort? And in fact, you had Ken Frazier, the brother who was the CEO of one of the pharmaceutical companies. You had Ken Chenault. People were lauding them for what pressure they were putting on. Well, where in the hell have they gone?"
I couldn't tell you, because right now it just feels like everything is stalled because of Manchin and Sinema. And last I checked, I voted for Biden as president, not Manchin, not Sinema, and not anyone else who wants to railroad democracy in this way. The fact of the matter is, we need every initiative that was in
Pause it right there. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. Just to be clear, Congress is a co-equal branch of the federal government. So a lot of bills that have to get passed have to go through Congress, the House, and the Senate. If you got a 50-50 Senate, then that increases the power of each one of those senators. Those bills have to go through the legislative branch of government. Congress is a co-equal branch of government. The legislative branch of government, the House and the Senate, don't work for the president. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. So we'll talk briefly about some of these articles that I'm showing, because I have thousands and thousands of articles. All these articles I'm talking about, we've talked about here on the show. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. How you doing, Index? Okay, back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Who still needs to register for the online classes that I teach on Saturday and Sunday? From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, and understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Also, if you like to stop, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African American business owners. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Should be 2 minutes. Current promotion is buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by.
history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, October 31st, 2021. And we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. I want to go back to this clip. This is from Roland Martin Unfiltered, Friday, October 29th, 2021. You can watch Roland's show on his Facebook and YouTube channels, Roland Martin on Facebook and YouTube. Also download his Black Star Media Network app, Black Star Media Network app to your Android phone, iPhone. It's also on Amazon. He's on Amazon Prime, Roku devices. So he has his own streaming network. His show airs there. You can watch me. I'm a panelist on Fridays. So we spoke with Melanie Campbell, who is president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable president. And she was with a group of civil rights organizations, Mark Morial of the National Urban League, Derek Johnson, NAACP, and I'm going to pull up this press release they put out. They met with Senator Joe Manchin on Friday, October 28th. We'll go back to the clip in just a second, Jalen, and then we'll go to the phone lines in just a minute. They met with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia on Thursday, October 28th. Here's a press release that they put out about the meeting. Read out a civil rights leaders meeting with Senator Joe Manchin. Okay, and you had Reverend Al Sharpton of the National Action Network. Reverend Al talked about that meeting on his show, on his radio show, Keeping It Real, that airs here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if we go through the leaders of the nation's top historic civil rights organizations, released the following joint readout on their meeting today with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. They said, citing the deteriorating crisis of democracy that continues to overtake the country, national civil rights leaders implored Senator Joe Manchin to commit to the protection of voting rights using every means at the Senate disposal, including overriding the filibuster. Quote, since the leaders last met with Senator Joe Manchin in June of 2021, some states have continued to enact discriminatory restrictions on voting and have begun approving racially gerrymandered political maps. Okay, because this is the playbook of Republicans to suppress the vote. They're doing the same thing that Southern states did after Reconstruction ended, and Southern states started rewriting their state constitutions. And you had the Mississippi Plan, the Mississippi rewriting their state constitution in 1890 to institute poll taxes and literacy tests to suppress the African American vote in a state that had a majority African American population, the state of Mississippi. They're doing the same. They're doing the same thing now that happened after Reconstruction ended. Since the leaders last met with Senator Joe Manchin in June 2021, some states have continued to enact discriminatory descriptions on voting and have begun approving racially gerrymandered political maps. conscientious election officials are being driven from office and replaced with partisan extremists intent on subverting the voters' will. This not only hurts democracy overall, but the communities we represent, who have been historically disenfranchised throughout our nation's history. We have fought too hard for our voting rights to see them eroded. We have fought too hard for our voting rights to see them eroded. Every senator must grasp the urgency of this critical moment in history and take immediate action to protect voting rights. The leaders noted that despite Senator Manchin's efforts to assemble a bipartisan coalition to pass voting rights legislation, most recently, his Freedom to Vote Act that he helped write, and Manchin said he could get 10 Republicans to vote for it. Not a single Republican voted to even move to the next step to have a debate on the Senate floor over his bill. Despite Senator Manchin's efforts to assemble a bipartisan coalition to pass voting rights legislation, not a single Republican senator has been willing to cooperate in the defense of democracy. Well, because they've already betrayed their oath to office when they didn't vote to remove Trump from office. They already betrayed their oath to office, and it's not in the interest of Republicans to make it easier to vote. They're trying to suppress the vote because you have a declining white population. They are overwhelmingly white party. They are the white nationalist obstructionist party. It's not in their interest to have a voting rights act in place and to shut down what's taking place in these Republican state legislatures. It's not in their interest to do that. It's time to dispense with the filibuster. Over the last half century, the U.S. Senate has carved out 161 exemptions from the filibuster. Over the last half century, the U.S. Senate has carved out 161 exemptions from the filibuster, many of which are in common use on matters involving trade, foreign policy, defense, budget reconciliation, judicial confirmations, and healthcare. The leaders impressed upon Senator Joe Manchin that nothing is more crucial to a functioning democracy than the right to vote, the most enshrined right in the Constitution. Conversely, the filibuster, primarily used in the 20th century to block civil rights legislation, never was part of the framers' vision for the Senate and is not enshrined in any law. Now, that they didn't say that Republicans used the filibuster also under the Trump administration to block Republican bills, and rightfully so. I'm just saying, you have to look at this holistically. Civil rights leaders in attendance: Mark Morial, National Urban League; Derek Johnson, NAACP; Wade Henderson, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, interim president and CEO, National Action Network; Reverend Al Sharpton, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, president and executive director; Damon Hewitt and Melanie Campbell, National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, Black Women's Roundtable; Janice Mathis, National Council of Negro Women Executive Director; and Sherilyn Eiffel, NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. Okay, I'm going to go back to this clip here. We're picking up, this is Kelly Bethia, who's an attorney. She was one of my co-panelists on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I was also on with Dr. Cleo Monago. Let's go back to this clip, Jalen.
Because that is what we voted for as a people. That is why we put Biden in office. That is why we worked so hard to make sure that we had a modicum of a majority in the Senate and the House come 2020. And now all of that feels like it's for naught because people are weak in that they don't want to fight, except for the people outside of Capitol Hill, such as Melanie and the like, who are fighting on our behalf. But we didn't vote for Melanie to fight on our behalf. We voted for Biden. We voted for Democrats. We voted for progressives to make sure that the agenda on the line is actually fulfilled, because literally our lives are at stake.
The thing here, Cleo, is at the end of the day, Manchin obviously only wants to deal with money. He loves fossil fuel money, oil and gas corporations. And so, you know what? The pressure needs to be placed on Exxon, placed on those coal companies, and say they should be standing up for voting rights. I mean, clearly, that's the only people who he listens to. And so that's how he must be targeted. And I've been saying it. And what Michael said, I've been saying this for actually years. Got to challenge also all of these white folks, these young voters out here who sort of been silent on this issue, because frankly, the only people who I see constantly protesting and getting arrested are black people. And Latinos got to shut the hell up. Asians got to shut the hell up as well.
First of all, Roland, you know me long enough for me to be able to comfortably ask you for that jacket that you got on. So know that I want that jacket when you finish.
You got to get your got to get your own made.
Okay, well, all right, well, I thought you knew me, but anyway, back to the topic. I agree with both of the panelists, particularly Mr. Hotep, who referenced to begin his comments on how the trans issue became an issue that everybody got behind in terms of supporting that, bathrooms, et cetera. It became a policy, a structural issue relatively quickly. But what I keep hearing, and maybe there's more that I could have heard, but I keep hearing Biden, and Biden needs to step up. But the LGBT community and the people that had bathrooms changed, et cetera, don't care who's president, in terms of that being their only focus of who they talk to get what they want. As Michael mentioned, and as I mentioned in previous shows, they have a machine. They have a consistent machine that is relentless and focused no matter who's in the White House. As a matter of fact, most people who are trying to get in the White House reference that machine to make sure they're in good with it, because they know that the machine is powerful. And that machine is omnipresent. It's in Congress. It's in every part of human life. But we don't have black people in every part of human life who are courageous enough to care about black people to that point. And that's one of our problems. And along with problem-solving conversation, we need to look at what I call it the trance that black people are in, including black people who are in Congress, et cetera. We are in a trance that that paralyzes us, but we only go so far. And when the white person doesn't support us, we give up and go back into this paralysis, go back into the trance. Like you said, Roland, these corporations and all these other people who like dollars need to feel concerned about what black people will do and won't do, what black people will and will not support. They need to be afraid of us. But for us to create that kind of reaction to us, we have to love ourselves more and be more and value black people and value black power and stop tiptoeing and worry about white gays. I mean white G-A-Z-E this time, not white G-A-Y-S, because that's part of what's going on. Right? We have an unconscious anxiety around hurting white folks' feelings, and the people who have power and get what they want in this country, they don't have that anxiety. That includes the LGBT.
Folks, hold tight 1 second. Got to go to a break.
Okay, pause it right there, Jalen.
Hold tight 1 second. Got to go to.
Pause it right there. Okay, thanks. And then we're going to go to clip 3 here in just a minute. John, call us back. I was coming to you. I think we lost John. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Read these articles here. We talked about them on Friday. I don't have time to get deep into them. These are articles back from when you had the transgender bathroom bill, the Indiana religious, what they call the Indiana Religious Freedom Restoration Act in 2015, that the corporations came out against and threatened to cancel contracts and threatened to one conference was canceled in the state of Indiana. Within a week, they changed the bill. The state legislature changed the bill. Now, this was at the time when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana. This article here from CNN.com, March 31st, 2015, Indiana Religious Freedom Restoration Act, what you need to know. And just very quickly here, they talk about the backlash is immediate. Civil liberties and gay rights groups hold to their stance that the law could be used by business to deny service to people based on their sexual orientation, etc. But they talk about boycott begins from sports teams to musicians to other cities and states. They fell like dominoes. So the response here is much different. Now we know that corporations have put out statements against the Texas and voter restriction bills in Texas and Georgia. We know Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game from Atlanta and put it into another state in protest of the Georgia voter restriction bill. But corporations have largely gone silent. They've largely gone silent. The NCAA, which is back March 2015, dealing with Indiana, the NCAA, which is headquartered in Indianapolis, and set to host its men's basketball Final Four back in 2015 in the city this week, said the law could lead it to move events elsewhere in future years. The NBA, WNBA, and NFL issued critical statements too. Okay, so you go through, you look at okay, so they have some response from sports teams, etc. The mayors of San Francisco and Seattle have barred spending on travel to Indiana. The mayors of San Francisco and Seattle have barred spending on travel to Indiana. The governors of Connecticut and the state of Washington did the same. So they go through and they talk about all this pressure put, especially economic pressure, put on the Indiana state legislature, put on the state of Indiana behind this bathroom bill. Okay. And then you look at this one here from Huffington Post. Gen Con threatens to take popular convention and millions out of Indiana over religious freedom bill. Now, this is from March 25th, 2015. Now, I talked about all this on this show when we were dealing, and this was before I was even on 910. I was on the Empowerment Radio Network then, and I was doing nationally syndicated radio. So I have thousands and thousands of articles. I still have archives of all these articles I dealt with. Gen Con is one of the largest video gaming conventions in the country. Organizers of Gen Con, said to be the largest gaming convention in the U.S., have threatened to take their event and potentially millions of dollars out of Indiana if Governor Mike Pence, Republican, who became vice president, but he was governor of Indiana first, if he signs a controversial religious freedom bill into law. Okay. So read the rest of this here. So you have to ask the question, well, wait a second. How is it now that corporations have laryngitis and amnesia, and I guess arthritis, because they stopped tweeting about it as well? How is it they've totally gone silent? You look at this one here from NBC News, and we'll go to John here in just a second. Thanks for calling back, John. April 14th, 2021, hundreds of CEOs, celebrities, corporations joined forces to oppose discriminatory voting legislation. Okay. In addition to big companies and their leaders, the statement's signatories include major law firms and nonprofits. They've largely gone silent. This is what I'm saying. Okay. A lot of these corporations, and one of the things I talked about, and we'll deal with this in the next clip, is that when in Texas, the NAACP is telling people to stay out of Texas, and they're calling on athletes not to sign with Texas teams over voting, mandates against wearing masks, anti-mask mandates, and dealing with the Texas abortion law. Okay. And they're telling people to stay out of Texas, et cetera, telling free agents not to sign with Texas sports teams. In addition to that, we should be going after the advertisers that advertise during the games that these Texas teams play on. And we should stop watching the games. Okay? We have to engage, we have to withdraw economic support and stop financing our own dehumanization. Okay, let's go to John, line 1. John, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding, John. Thanks for calling back in. Tell us where you're calling from.
Yeah, I'm calling from Detroit, east side of Detroit.
Okay.
Motor City.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Listen, Hotep, you got to put pressure on them, man. The NBA stars got to open their damn mouth and so forth. Use my French, but that's what they got to do. And the Super Bowl coming up. I wonder where them Mexican Americans at in the Super Bowl. They can put pressure there. Mm-hmm. Now, from the Jump Street, we had this Tim Scott and this weak guy from New Jersey. I know I figured he was gonna be some kind of a shut up secret stuff come out of there because we had two people that didn't hardly have a clue how they fight and what they know what to do and so forth. And so I regret that they had him and Tim Scott as front and so forth.
Okay.
And this kid from Virginia, you got to get the stars and so forth. People who spend money and boycott some of these companies, I guarantee you they're over their mouth and so forth.
Right.
And they got to get on it and get on it immediately and don't waste no time. So that's what they're doing. They stall the time. After time, the time's gonna run out. So right. I want to thank you, Hotep, for the knowledge and information. And keep the information coming. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, John. Thanks for calling back. All right, let's go quickly. I think we have Dave line 2. Let's go quickly to Dave, then we're going to get to this other segment from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Dave, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Dave, this is Dave from Hampton Roads, Virginia. You know that. How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm all right.
Yeah, congratulations on your new show on the Black Star Network. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Well, I'm on Roland Show.
I just want to ask you about this.
I'm on Roland Show. I don't have a show.
I
don't have a show on the Black Star Network yet, but I'm on Roland Show. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just spoke that into existence, buddy. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming. I was just calling you about the proposal to give $450,000 each to the separated migrants at the border during the Trump administration. That's kind of a slap in the face to Black people in terms of our reparations claims. What do you think we should do?
It's to settle lawsuits. It's to settle lawsuits that have already been filed. The ACLU. Now, first of all, if you're talking about the article from the Wall Street Journal, nobody from the Biden administration has commented on it, so we're limited on the information. The information is only coming from one side. That's to settle lawsuits filed on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union against the federal government on behalf of some of the migrants whose children were separated. Okay, it's to settle a lawsuit.
Yeah, I understand that, Mike.
There were settlements under the Trump administration to some of the migrants as well. That's talked about in the same article. Now, what we should do.
Okay, yeah, right. I understand all that. I'm asking when there's money ready for us.
Okay, here's what we have to understand. The Department of Justice just announced a settlement dealing with redlining this past October 23rd. That was filed against a bank in the settlement dealing with redlining. What we should do is look at what type of lawsuit can we file against the federal government, class action lawsuit, because this was a class action lawsuit. This was a class action lawsuit that was filed. We should look at what type of lawsuit can we file against the federal government as class action. And the most important thing is this is something that happened in the past 3 years. This is something that happened in 2018, not 156 years ago. This is one of the mistakes people make. See, one of the things we should look at doing is a class action lawsuit on redlining, because that's taking place right now. That's still taking place right now. The lawsuit that was filed is not for what happened 156 years ago. The previous generations is what the federal government did in 2018 under the Trump administration.
Okay, my point is, for their reparations, they didn't have to do a study. They didn't have to have HR 40. They just went right to discussing the money.
It was a lawsuit.
Yeah,
there was a lawsuit against the federal government, just like there was a lawsuit filed against the federal government on behalf of the survivors in Charleston, South Carolina, who awarded $88 million because there was a lawsuit. There's a difference between HR 40. HR 40 is not a lawsuit. That's not a HR 40 is a bill.
Is a claim, yes.
It's a bill.
Right.
It's not a claim. It's a bit. People have to go to congress.gov. People have to go to congress.gov and read what HR 40 is, because you're talking about dealing with slavery and the legacy of slavery. The lawsuit that's been filed by the ACLU is based upon what happened in 2018. It's a lawsuit filed against the federal government. A bill and a lawsuit against the government are two different things. Just like the lawsuit.
Yeah, I understand that. This is what I'm asking you. In light of the debacle of dealing with Tim Scott with the police reform, and then dealing with Joe Manchin with the voting rights, and now something like this, it looks like a slap in the face to black people. I'm asking, what do you think our response should be?
I just told you.
Biden administration?
I just told you. I said we should look at what type of class action. I said what type of class, because that's what they just did. That was a class action lawsuit that was filed. People don't understand. All right, thanks for calling, Dave. People, that's what they did. They filed a class action lawsuit.
Okay.
People don't understand.
I got you. All right, thank you.
People don't understand.
You. Have a good night.
All right. That was a class action lawsuit. Now, once again, we're only getting information from one side because nobody in the Biden administration has commented. It was a class action lawsuit filed dealing with redlining, and there was a settlement just made that we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. I wanted to talk about it Thursday or Friday. We just had so many topics to deal with. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the settlement in a class action lawsuit on redlining. And this was the second settlement, the second recent settlement. That was a class action lawsuit. With Charleston, the $88 million awarded to the survivors, that's a class action lawsuit. Here we have limited information, but the ACLU has filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of migrants who were trying to apply for political asylum, which is legal. Applying for political asylum is legal. That's a class action lawsuit. We still have limited information on that. What I said is we should look at what type of class action lawsuit we can file that's dealing with present day, because the class action lawsuit the ACLU filed is not for what happened in 1846 with the Mexican-American War. It's what happened in 2018 done by the federal government at the border. I said we should look at what type of class action lawsuit that we can file that's present day, because that and what's really important to understand is from the article from the Wall Street Journal, the settlement is to avoid going to court, because they know going to court, the award in court to the plaintiff could be even more than what the settlement would be. And they know the government was at fault. And there were settlements under the Trump administration. People weren't calling in talking about it then, but I don't know. There were settlements under the Trump administration. It's in the same article. But we should look at what type of class action lawsuit we can file, and one would be dealing with redlining, because they just announced recently 2 settlements, the Department of Justice class action lawsuits dealing with redlining, because it's taking place right now. All right. A lot of people confuse activity with productivity and ain't really solution oriented. Let's continue. I want to go back to this clip here from Roland Martin and Phil. This is Friday, October 29th. Now, this is we were dealing with the next topic. We talked about this Friday. Derek Johnson, the NAACP, put out a statement. They issued a 2-page letter dealing with Texas and calling on free agents not to sign with Texas sports teams, professional sports teams, NBA, NHL, NFL, WNBA, Major League Baseball, and not to, and also telling African Americans to stay out of Texas if you value your life, If you are a woman, he said, quote, if you are a woman, avoid Texas. If you are Black, avoid Texas. If you want to lower your chances of dying from coronavirus, avoid Texas. Okay. I want to go to, let's see here. Well, we played that on Friday. Let's go to a sample. We'll probably continue this on tomorrow's show. Let's go to clip 3, Jalen.
In Texas, where Derek Johnson, head of the NAACP, is calling on professional athletes not to sign with any Texas teams as a result of the policies being put in place by Republicans in that state, including a voter suppression bill. This was a letter that he released publicly. It says, I write to you today in an attempt to appeal not only to your influential platforms as highly regarded athletes, but to your respective purposes as parents and role models for both our children and those in your personal lives. From abortion to voting rights and mask mandates, Texas has become a blueprint by legislators to violate constitutional rights for all, especially for women, children, and marginalized communities. As we watch an incomprehensible assault on basic human rights unfold in Texas, we are simultaneously witnessing a threat to constitutional guarantees for women, children, and marginalized communities. Over the past few months, legislators in Texas have passed archaic policies disguised as laws that directly violate privacy rights and a woman's freedom to choose, restrict access to free and fair elections for Black and brown voters, and increase the risk of contracting coronavirus. If you are a woman, avoid Texas. If you are Black, avoid Texas. If you want to lower your chances of dying from coronavirus, avoid Texas. We're not pleading with you. If you are a free agent and are considering employment in Texas, look elsewhere. The Texas government will not protect your family. Demand that Texas owners invest in your rights and protect your investments. Texas is not safe for you, your spouse, or your children. Until the legislation is overturned, Texas isn't safe for anyone. And the teams mentioned include the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers in Major League Baseball, the Houston Texans and Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, the Houston Rockets, Dallas Mavericks, San Antonio Spurs of the NBA, Dallas Stars of the NHL, and the Dallas Wings in the WNBA. Cleo, what do you make of this letter from Derek Johnson trying to appeal to professional athletes not to sign with Texas teams?
Pretty powerful. I mean, he broke it all down. He made it real clear that people should think about what they do and look at the consequences of being in Texas. I didn't realize that being in Texas was that dangerous. Are you in danger?
All right, Paul. Okay.
Am I in danger? No, I'm not in danger,
Yeah,
but
Paul,
I do have a significant problem. But I do have a significant problem with what's happening in the state capitol there.
Hey, pause it right there, Jalen.
And I get there.
Pause it right there. We'll continue that clip tomorrow. I played it on our Friday show. Read this article here from ABC News. We talked about this Friday. NAACP calls on athletes not to sign with Texas teams over voting abortion laws. ABCnews.com. And then also read this one here. Okay, a lot of people missed this from the press conference that Merrick Garland had, Department of Justice Attorney General, dealing with the settlement when it comes to redlining. That's present day class action lawsuit. A lot of people missed that. Justice Department launches new effort to target discriminatory lending among banks. Washington Post, October 22nd, 2021. Attorney General Merrick Garland on Friday launched a new Justice Department initiative aimed at combating discriminatory lending policies among banks, saying the practice harms minority communities and contributes to the racial wealth gap. In an address to staff, Garland cited the history of banks denying loans to Black borrowers during the Great Depression, a tactic known as redlining, and warned that such practices remain widespread more than 90 years later. Now, there was a press conference they had on, I think it was October 23rd, where they announced a settlement with a major bank. There was a class action lawsuit filed against the bank because of redlining, and this is the second settlement recently. So we'll talk about this on tomorrow's show as well, but read this article here. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a couple more minutes, and we'll talk. We're going to talk a little bit about this other topic that Ahamed Arbery. Right now, it's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, everybody, stand by back from break in just a minute here.
On Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose television network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30 plus channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go.
in Memphis, Tennessee, saying the institution has agreed to invest $3.85 million in a loan subsidy fund and dedicate loan officers as well as open a loan office in a majority Black or Hispanic neighborhood. The bank will also pay a $5 million civil penalty against federal. A $5 million civil penalty, federal officials said. Federal authorities said that from 2014 to 2018, Trustmark Bank avoided areas where minorities lived, locating its loan offices in majority white neighborhoods. Okay, this was a lawsuit that was filed. Under the Justice Civil Rights Division will work with U.S. attorneys. Okay, read that. The settlement with Trustmark comes after the Justice Department reached agreement in August with Cadence Bank to invest more than $5.5 million to increase credit opportunities for Black and Hispanic borrowers in Houston. This was the second settlement with the bank actually announced this year, due to redlining, which is still present day. So we need to look at what type of class action lawsuit we can file based upon redlining. Now, redlining may not be the only thing that we file a class action lawsuit based upon, but redlining is probably one of the more easy ones, and it's present day. It's taking place right now. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark said redlining, and she was at the press conference also. She said redlining is alive and well and has had a lasting negative impact. Redlining is alive and well and has had a lasting negative impact. Ending redlining is a critical step toward closing the widening gaps of wealth between communities of colors and others. We have a duty to act now. So one of the most important things to understand is that this is dealing with something that's present day. Even though redlining was created by the federal government, goes back to the Homeowners Loan Corporation, was created in 1933. Redlining starts in about 1937, and you have the Federal Housing Administration involved in forming redlining. Okay, but this is taking place present day. This is something that a lot of people don't seem to understand. Okay, when they talk about lawsuits and reparations, all this stuff, redlining is a legacy of Jim Crow segregation, things like this. But this is taking place right now. Experts have said redlining has contributed to generational inequities, as Black families have had more obstacles than white ones to buying a home and being able to pass along that asset to their children. In the first quarter of 2020, for example, 44% of Black families owned their home, compared with 73.7% of white families, according to the Census Bureau. So we're dealing with present day effects of redlining that continues right now. We're not talking about chattel slavery ended 156 years ago. We're talking about what's taking place right now, and redlining still exists and is still negatively impacting us. Quote, today, a white family is 30% more likely to own a home than a Black family, Attorney General Merrick Garland said, emphasizing that the gap is, quote, larger than it was in 1960, end quote. Federal officials said their efforts would not be limited to traditional forms of redlining, but will also address digital forms of unfair lending based on computer algorithms that offer on loan at advertisements or underwriting guarantees to certain potential customers while leaving out other groups. All right, read the rest of this. We'll talk about this on Monday's show. Read the rest of this here. Because I watched the press conference when it happened live. Justice Department launches new effort to target discriminatory lending among banks. Okay. Can you all hear me? You should be able to hear. You want to refresh your screen if you can't hear. Stand by just a second here. Can you all hear me? Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Testing 1 2 3. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, refresh your screen if you can't hear. Okay, so read this one here from the Washington Post. Did anybody see this press conference when it took place? It was October 22nd, I think it was, or October 23rd, because I watched the press conference live. All right, now the other story that I'm going to squeeze in here, and we talked about this on Thursday, is dealing with one of them. One we'll deal with tomorrow, but this one here, dealing with Ahamed Arbery. This deals with how the history of citizens' arrest and how it plays a part in the trial of the 3 white men charged with killing Ahamed Arbery. Read this article here from fastcompany.com. This gives some background historical information on the citizens' arrest law. Okay, the citizens' arrest law that the 3 defendants are invoking and saying that they were authorized to chase down Ahamed Arbery. This law dates back to 1863 when Georgia was part of the Confederacy. The troubling history of citizens' arrests from slave patrols to Ahamed Arbery to ICE. This is from fastcompany.com from July 20th, 2020. Okay. And they go back and give history of citizens' arrests going back to the Statute of Winchester in 1285 AD in England, okay, when King Henry I explicitly instructed citizens to join the night watch. Now, then they deal with during slavery, and they talk about Barbados, which is a British colony, in 1661 passed the first slave code, which among a number of other regulations required slaves who were away from the plantation to hold passes from their masters, and allowed any white man to stop them and ask them to view those passes. Then they talk about South Carolina in 1691. South Carolina was the first British colony to set up its slave code in 1691 before the practice spread to other areas of the 13 colonies. And then they deal with 1863, and this particular one, I think it's in this article here. They talk about 1863. Yeah. So the citizens arrest law was abolished in May 2021, but it went into effect in 1863 while Georgia was part of the Confederacy. Okay, while Georgia was part of the Confederacy. And it was the law was designed to allow white people to capture slaves fleeing to the Union Army during the Civil War. This is what this law was used for, while Georgia was part of the Confederacy. They weren't even part of the U.S. when this law was enacted. Okay, read the rest of this article here. So therefore, I asked the question, okay, is this law even legitimate? Because Georgia was committing treason against the U.S. government based upon Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution, and they weren't even part of the U.S. government when they passed this law. When it went into effect in 1863, Georgia was part of the Confederacy. The troubling history of citizens' arrests, from slave patrols to Ahamed Arbery to ICE. All right. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, and also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN Show, SHOW. And when you go to it, it says Michael, shows my picture there as well. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. Okay, this is not me. All right, all my digital downloads and DVD lectures are at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online courses that I teach there as well. Remember, right now is correct wrong. Also, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com if you want to advertise with the African History Network also. Okay, our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 2 months free. We have 2 or 3 more slots available. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.